Hello and welcome to the Global Electronics Report. It's Friday, October 7th, and my name is David Burford. There are optimistic signs the US market for personal computing devices is set to recover after several years of decline, according to a new report from Daniel Research Group. The report suggests moderate growth in 2017, accelerating in 2018 to produce a 5-year CAGR of around 7.8%. Detachable tablets, the growth in mobility devices, and increased functionality are all cited as the primary drivers for recovery. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there are reports in the South China Morning Post that Fujitsu is contemplating divesting its personal computer business to Hong Kong-based Lenovo. Alberto Moel from Bernstein Research said, "One acquisition scenario may involve Fujitsu transferring its personal computer, design, development and manufacturing to a new Lenovo-led joint venture. This would effectively give the Chinese company control of 40% of Japan's personal computer market and leave Fujitsu clear to concentrate on higher margin business." The electronics manufacturing industry turned its attention to Mexico this week with the SMTA Expo and conference in Guadalajara. By all accounts, the event was packed. Trevor Galbraith spoke to Phil Stoughton, who brings us this report.
This week in Guadalajara, of course, we had the SMTA Mexico conference and exhibition, which I hear by all accounts was extremely busy. And our friend and colleague Phil Stoughton is here to tell us what happened down south of the border. Welcome, Phil.
Hi. Good to see you, Trevor.
Okay, so early reports I've heard, Phil, is that it was pretty packed down there. Maybe you can verify that and give us some of the highlights.
Yeah, I would say it was quite busy during the breaks. As always with these shows that are more conference than exhibition, you see a lot more people in the coffee breaks and the lunch hour on the exhibition floor. Word is about 700 people there. Around about 300 of those suppliers, so around about 400 good quality delegates. The companies I spoke to said they had visitors from Sanmina, Jabil, Flextronics, all the big guys, but also some of the tier 2 internationals like iCore, and also some of the smaller local companies, which we're seeing having much more impact here now. So I think it's a pretty buoyant Mexico market at the moment, so I think the show pretty well reflected that.
Excellent, excellent. Any other specific things that happen? I guess most of the products down there would be all the American-driven principles that were down there.
Yeah, but that's really interesting, Trevor. I spoke to a couple of companies, and even a couple of companies that represent the large global internationals, and they're starting to look for some Mexican products, and they're starting to develop some of their own products. One particular company had a coated stencil, not a nano coating, but a coating they believe is much more robust, lasts much longer, and works very well, called Cobra. And they're actually presenting that at Apex in San Diego next spring. So we're starting to see that Mexican influence filter through in terms of product development, and how that's going to sit alongside the international brands is yet to be seen. Obviously, the show was dominated by about 3 international repping companies that dominate that Mexico landscape. So they're very important down there. But we're starting to see some changes there, and I think it reflects what's going on elsewhere, with more brands, particularly from the automotive sector and the medical sector, starting to move into the area.
Yeah, automotive's getting very heavy down there. Was there any evidence of any Chinese equipment or materials?
No, absolutely not. No Chinese presence at all. It actually would be an interesting market for them. The exchange rates give them a challenge in terms of labor rates and make Mexico attractive, you would think it would therefore make it an interesting market for them to export to. But I didn't see any of them, and I also didn't see any of those Chinese brands that we're now seeing represented by the European and the US companies. So Yeah, I think I don't know whether they will be here. I don't know how they view the market. It's certainly challenging them, and the exchange rate at 20 pesos to the dollar makes everything great value here, including the production equipment, but also the tequila. So
Wonderful, wonderful.
uh, plenty
Well,
of
I guess
people.
time's going
Yeah.
to tell, after November to see whether, obviously it's a Trump election and that changes things around
Mm.
there. But certainly for now, it sounds like it was a really interesting and vibrant show. So,
Yeah, it's a vibrant environment here, and the Trump thing and the wall is all source of amusement and source for a little bit of confusion here at the moment, as it is in the rest of the world. We'll see how that plays out after November. I think one of the key trends that we're seeing in Mexico, and I think we're starting to see it in Eastern Europe and elsewhere in the low cost environment, is where the industry gets involved in innovation. So rather than just that connection to low cost manufacturing, where it's just delivering product that has been gateway from North America, they're starting to get into new product introduction. They're starting to innovate. We're starting to see some local products. Plug and Play, which is Silicon Valley's largest incubator, have opened up an office here in Guadalajara. There's a new kind of startup center that has lots of those kinds of companies in. I visited the University Panamericana here, and they're running innovation and technology tracks, and they're starting to see some traction there. So I think the market here is really maturing, and if it can maintain political stability, it feels very safe at the moment. If it stays that way, I think it's a good time to be operating in Mexico.
wow, it's interesting to hear about the innovation and that coming out of there, but I suppose it was inevitable. Phil, I want to thank you very much for joining us today and thank you for the update from Mexico. Safe travels.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Global SMT and Packaging will be hosting an in-depth webinar next Thursday on design for cleaning and reliability. The webinar will be held as part of Global SMT and Packaging's Masterclass series. The expert presenter is Dr. Mike Bixenman from Kaizen and supporting panellists. Trevor spoke to Dr. Bixenman about the webinar.
So, joining me today, Mike Bixenman from Kaizen Corporation. We have a really interesting webinar coming up on Thursday, October 13th at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect from the webinar?
Yes, Trevor. We've done a lot of research over the last 2 years, and it's been collaborative research, industry research with other companies to look at areas where you see a lot of failures that occur on current circuit assemblies or electronic circuits. And what we find is that a lot of these failures are very site-specific type failures, and typically they occur on leadless components. What we found is that even if you're using a no-clean material, if you're soldering a leadless component and you have a high thermal mass, you have a very tight spacing between your power and ground, and that residue can still be active underneath that component because it doesn't really have a channel to outgas. So what we'll present is some of the research of where we have created non-standard test boards to be able to look at the residue properties underneath these leadless components. And then we'll also present some design methodologies that can help resolve that problem. So the audience should learn more about where failures are most problematic, some of the reasons why those failures occur, and what they can do to mitigate those failures.
Okay, excellent. Well, we look forward to joining you on Thursday for that webinar. It's going to be a very interactive webinar, of course, with your panelists. You have three panelists that are joining us: Bruno Toller from Kester, Dale Lee from Plexus, and of course Mark McMean from STI Microelectronics. So 11 o'clock Thursday, which is of course 4 o'clock in the UK and 8 o'clock on the West Coast. Mike, look forward to meeting you then.
Thank you, Trevor. Look forward to it.
This is a highly technical webinar and a must-attend event for experienced design engineers and production managers. Plexus Corporation announced the appointment of Steve Frisch to Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. With his promotion, Mr. Frisch assumes responsibilities for Plexus' global manufacturing and engineering operations, go-to-market, supply chain and quality functions. Todd Kelsey, President and CEO, commented, "Steve is an experienced leader with a comprehensive knowledge of our industry and customer base. Throughout his 26-year tenure with Plexus, he has built a reputation for developing talent and delivering results. In the process, he has established the foundation of our EMEA strategy, refined our unique go-to-market approach, and deployed key strategic initiatives throughout the enterprise." That's it for this week. Check back next week for more top stories from around the electronics world.